Hey everybody, this is herculespetix, founder, curator, docent, and gift shop employee of the herculespetix Academy of Comic Book Studies. Today we're going to continue our scholarly examination of Wasteland, the great DC anthology from the late 80s, written by Del Close and John Ostrander. Today we're looking at number 4 through 6. Same artists, same writers. Very interesting anthology. Okay, let's check out number 4. Really creepy, nice cover by David Lloyd here. You probably know David Lloyd from V for Vendetta and his many great comics, English comics, and some great American comics as well. First story we have is called Sonnet 66. Solo story by John Ostrander, and it's drawn by George Freeman. Most of the, a lot of the dialogue or captions in this comic are from William Shakespeare, his famous sonnet. And we have, once again, colors by Laverne Kinzerski. Really nice colors in this one. Very nice kind of muted palette. Also, George Freeman's drawing in this really, I don't know quite the adjective to use, kind of choppy style. Usually he's very smooth, George Freeman. His pen line, his ink line. This is very choppy. Kind of neat. It's a pretty neat style. And we see this guy is kind of, seems like he's a failed writer. And as the lines from Shakespeare's sonnet are in each panel, we see in his reality how they reflect the lines from the sonnet. For example, here's a maiden virtue rudely strumpeted, and we see a billboard for this new perfume that has like a child model decked out all like with makeup, strumpety, if you will. And this is kind of there were ads like this in the 90s and the noughts. I think Benetton had some ads where there was like some teenage kids who like were just like all tricked out to look all sexy and adult. It's kind of creepy and weird. Really nice art. I would never guess that was George Freeman. Just like that angular panel. I like to see, these are the colors I'm talking about. Kind of nice. This guy doesn't look happy. And, the comic keeps doing that, showing lines from the sonnet and showing how they resonate with the news of the day. Right perfection wrongfully disgraced. And we see a headline about an all-American cotton drug bust basketball player. Art made tongue-tied by authority. And there's a news report on TV about how in Florida, the principal of a high school is banning the Canterbury Tales and Huck Finn and Hamlet. See, look at the inking there. Look at this arm here. That abstract shading. It's like weirder than anything Kirby's ever done. Kirby's squiggles and stuff. That's just some odd. It works, though. It looks like Keith Giffen wasn't the only one that was looking at Jose Munoz. So he's in his bedroom looking at his sleeping wife. And he takes out a gun. And he is going to eat a bullet, it looks like. But he stops himself. The line in the sonnet says, "Save that to die, I leave my love alone." So he's like, if I kill myself, I'll leave my wife alone in misery. So he walks up to her and he aims the gun at her head and she says, "Billy, is that you?" And that's how the story ends. Pretty odd. This next one's called The Safe Place. It's written by Ostrander and Close and art by William Mesner Loebs. Very, very sloppy art by William Esner Lopes. I talked about that last episode. Man, William Esner Lopes is just, it's sloppy. Look at these guys right here. That's just like, I don't know what that is. This woman, the protagonist of the story, she was part of a terrorist attack. She was a victim. And her and some tourists were held by these terrorists in Turkey, I believe. Somewhere in Europe. And we see her inner self. And she's angry. She's like, damn you bastards. Why? We're tourists. We're just fucking tourists. And then all the police come in, the SWAT teams. So it turns into a big bloodbath. And when they finally take her blindfold off, that's what she sees. Everyone, all the civilians have been killed. She's like the only one who made it. So you can imagine she's pretty fucked up from that. So she recedes into her own mind. And we hear these voices. Mary Elizabeth, can you hear me? Don't hide. And she's just saying, go away. You're safe, Mary Elizabeth. Come out into the light. So then she, I guess, does come out of the light, into the light, and she goes to therapy. And then it's kind of implied that this guy, I don't know, had his way with her, molested her, took advantage. This is how she sees it, this monstrous, crazy, sick invasion of herself. But I think that's her way of coping. Look at that. That's just, it's like something from an underground comic. It's nasty. So she recedes again. Once again, they're like, Mary, can you hear me? Don't hide. Move into the light. So I guess this woman keeps going into like almost vegetable states. And they want to cure her. So here's, I guess, another time when she's, semi, quote unquote, normal. And she has to walk to her car at night. And she's just like a little kid afraid of the dark. And all these demons come out of the woods. Then again, they could just be real like muggers or something who actually do attack her. Because that's how she sees these threats. She kind of, what's the word? Fantasizes them, turns them into weird fantasy creatures. So once again, she's back in her vegetative state, and the voices are like, she's catatonic. She's a goddamn vegetable. And she's thinking to herself, never again, never again, never again. You'll never fool me again. So she's not coming out of her shell. This next one's crazy. It's written by the two authors, and cartoon by Don Simpson. And it's called Celebrity Rights. And it's this crazy game show, almost sporting event trial. So it's almost like this is Judge Judy in the future, but it's a real trial. And this is totally over-the-top satire, black satire. It's pretty funny stuff. So the case is the defendant, Roy Penn, he's this famous artist, was allegedly on his hands and knees staring at a pile of feces when the plaintiff, Judy Barbutt, took his photograph. The defendant then allegedly rose up and beat the plaintiff to within an inch of her life. And he pleads not guilty. And he totally admits it. He says, yeah, I beat her up. She invaded my privacy. She broke my concentration. The way he draws this commentator here. So here's the lawyer for Judy. I'm sorry, this is the lawyer for Roy Penn, the artist. And he basically pulls a celebrity defense. I guess in this future this works. The lawyer says, well, he's a celebrity, so he's allowed to do things like that. And the other lawyer tries to say he wasn't a celebrity at the time he beat her up. But it doesn't matter. It's like he's a superstar now. And shows all this proof by all the people wearing Roy Penn t-shirts. Roy King of Shit. And it works. Even the judge wants one of his t-shirts and his autograph. The judge, he also says, since you have been raised 2 status notches, it is only fair that this woman be lowered 2 status notches from professional to bum. Judy Barbuti, you now a bum. And then the judge, for her daring to question his ruling, he says, no, I'm lowering you another 2 notches. You're now an animal, a pig. And all the people in the audience go, get the pig, kill the pig. And they don't show it, but it's obvious they all just massacre her. And then the artist lawyer, so odd. You know, he looks like this grandma. It's all a suit. He's just a normal looking guy who wears this when he's the lawyer. So crazy. And everyone just walks off just like nobody gives a shit about Judy. Crazy story. Fucking dark satire. Okay, what do we got next? Number 5. Beautiful George Freeman cover. Oh, I love this cover. Look at this. This hobo, homeless guy has fallen asleep. I'm sorry. He's frozen to death. And these kids are joyfully playing with everything they found in his little sack of stuff. Just oblivious that he's dead. They're just like, wee. Oh. This time we win. And this is written by the 2 guys and cartooned by Donald Simpson. We see this South American jungle war. It looks like it's the near future. It looks like we got another Vietnam going on in Central America. The Colonel Lucius is like, come on, guys, we got to evacuate. And one of them says, no, I'm not leaving anyone behind. First rule of being a Marine. So Colonel Lucius cracks him, knocks him out, so we'll get on the helicopter. And they retreat. And then they drop nukes. And Lucius says, you know, Nam taught us something. This time we win. So we see them getting a ticker tape parade, all the soldiers. So that ended the war pretty much, you know, nuking the place. And all these hippie protesters are like, this isn't victory, it's genocide. And of course, there's a culture class. Some people are like, they're heroes. And a big riot breaks out. People start punching each other. We see years later that soldier who didn't want to leave his men behind and question the war. He's just like a bum in Latin America. These American soldiers who are stationed there, because, you know, we've taken over. They're like, hey, I think the colonel will want to see this guy, this crazy American. And it's Lucius, way older, you know, he's all bald now. And he says, He says, I'll see you taken care of for old time's sake. And because you were right in the old days, you were right to be appalled. What made you sense what was to come? Honduras, Panama, Guatemala, Costa Rica, Cuba? It seems like we've taken over almost all of Central America. And it's almost like there's a secret treaty because the Russians don't even care that we take over Cuba and we let Russia take over all of Europe. So Lucius knows like it's all bogus, all of this. He's like, yeah, now we're going to win the blessings of freedom for these little chicken shit countries by killing their elected leaders, blowing up their cities, and shooting their people. We've made ourselves into something I hate. And then all of a sudden, soldier says, Mervs are heading toward us. ETA 5 minutes. And Lucius is like, nuclear drill, hit the alarm, damn it, move. I see one, oh God, I see. And they get nuked. And the guy's just laughing. The soldier, disillusioned soldier. This next story is drawn by William Mesner Loebs, as you can probably tell. This one's a lot better drawn than some of his other ones, just a really nice cartoony style. This is another one of his autobiographical stories. The credits are coming up soon. And I guess part of this act is this guy would use a bullwhip to knock a cigarette out of Dell's mouth. And this guy fucked up and chopped off the tip of his nose. So he fires Dell. He's like, you make me look bad. So it's 1954, North Carolina. And another bit of autobiography from Doug Close and John Ostrander. So he knows this gypsy woman, Madame Blaine, and she says, hey, you could earn $10. There's this guy in town. And he needs someone to pedal his anti-gravity machine. He's too old and frail to do it. So Dell's game. And he goes off to his little basement. He sees chloroform on the table. Here's the machine. Some kind of bicycle with all this shit built on it. And Dell insists that they carry the machine outside. He doesn't trust this guy. He's like, picks up a wrench to hammer down the point. He's like, outside or not at all. And then he kind of admits to Dell. He says, I've been using this machine so long for bait. I almost forgot that I really am a scientist. It should work. So I guess this guy's been luring young men down into his basement and doing God knows what. Horrible things. So Dell gets on the machine, starts pedaling, and it works. He actually raises like 5 feet off the ground. And the scientist has this total moment of clarity. He's like, oh, all those young boys wasted. They could have been pumping the pedals and making me famous instead. Oh my God, why did it have to work? You betrayed me. And Dell has to conk him out with a wrench. And Dell doesn't really even understand until years later, like just how horrible this guy was, and he probably killed a lot of young men. A vast improvement for William Mesner Loebs. Here we got big crossover issue, written by the two writers and David Lloyd Art. And this is Del Close and John Ostrander sitting around thinking about a story to do a crossover story. So they have Swamp Thing do a walkthrough. You see Batman in the background. So Ostrander actually, well, they say actually has a grave in his backyard because it came with the property. As they're walking down the stairs to the backyard, we see Wonder Woman, Hermes, Dr. Fate. Looks like a satyr. So now it just seems like they're in some fantasy land. They can't even see the house anymore. There's a cat flying through the air. The wind is so strong. So when they dig up the grave, they see it's a door. The door handle and everything. They open the door, and it says, wrong universe, close it. And look, it's Grimjack from John Ostrander's first comics character. I guess it's the zombie version, so, they can't sue him. So they conk Grimjack on the head with their shovels and throw him back in the grave. And then Del Close is like, hey, I got some of those tubers from Swamp Thing. With this powerful hallucinogen, we can transport ourselves through other dimensions back to the office. Because they're like stuck in this weird crossover dimension. So they eat the tuber. And it works. They're back at their office. And then Del Close talks to the audience. Okay, kiddies, we've broken reality in the story. That's only been to draw you in. John and I have our fingers on your death nerve right now, and if we push it even a little, you'll die. And it's 3D, almost as if like, they're coming out of the comic, and they could press our death nerve. Meanwhile, the editor, Mike Gold, is right at the door, at the front door, and he's threatening to kill them if they don't turn the story in. Another fun issue. God, I love the way those guys write. Okay, guys, this is a weird thing. This is what number 6 looks like. It says the real number 6. There's a weird, stupid story behind this where, I guess when number 5 of Wasteland came out, they accidentally used the cover from number 6, which is this Don Simpson drawing. Pretty nice. It says number 6. It's actually like a printing thing. The whole cover and the inside front cover from number 6 were put on number 5. So they rushed to reprint of number 5 with the correct cover, which we saw. Because, the whole format of this comic is that there's 4 artists, 3 do the interiors, 1 does the cover, and it rotates. So, of course, the editor, Mike Gold, was like, you totally fucked up the whole thing we had going. So his assistant editor was like, okay, so we'll reprint it. So there will be the proper number 5 with the George Freeman cover. We already have the number 6 cover because we fucked up. And then for number 6, the actual number 6, they decided to do this cover just to draw attention to it. So people would understand. I don't know. I don't see why they didn't just put this cover on number 6 to say it's the second edition, the corrected edition. But it is striking. I remember seeing this on the stands and being like, what the fuck is going on? Here's Mike Gold's whole explanation, what I just told you. First story, Method Actor. It's by the 2 writers and David Lloyd, art and colors. We see this guy. He's a He's a nice guy, but he has a lisp. He has a really bad lisp. So he's trying to get like serious roles, like Shakespearean roles, but it sounds terrible. He has this really bad lisp. So he can't get a job. His name's Stomper. And he asked the casting agents, he says, "It's my lisp, isn't it?" He's like, "I've got supplemental dentathin." And he shows them. I guess he's got 2 rows of teeth. I guess that's something that can happen. It makes one of the guys puke. So he's talking to his agent, and his agent's like, "Dude, you had a sweet gig. I mean, face it, you're an amusement park ride. You're just this big, strong guy. I guess he was on a popular show like Hercules or something where he didn't have to act. And he's making lots of money, but he wants to be a real actor. So he's trying out for all these serious roles, and of course he's not getting them because he can barely, he doesn't talk well." So he leaves his agent's office very depressed. And all of a sudden, there's like a 5-car pileup. And this little kid is trapped under one of the cars. And he's like, "It hurts, it hurts." So Stomper realizes, hey, this could be the role of a lifetime. And he runs over. And he lifts the car up. Look at the muscles in his neck. This is, almost looks like David Lloyd was taking lessons from Don Simpson, like Megaton Man shit. And he lifts the car up successfully. And the kid is saved. They pull him out, and the dog too. And then his back snaps. So it was just pure willpower. He's lifting that car. It's horrible. And he's crushed under the pileup. Later, he's in a wheelchair. He's a paraplegic. Is that the right word? From now on. But, he's making the TV. He's a hero, so he's on all these TV shows. And he's got a good outlook. He says, "I gave the greatest performance of my life." Sorry, the greatest. And then his agent comes in and says, "Stomper, they're doing a production of Endgame by Samuel Beckett, and they want you to play Ham." And the big joke is that he says, "Wait a second, am I going to get typecast in wheelchair parts?" And the manager says, "Actors." Next, we have Paper Hero, written by Ostrander and Close, art by William Mesner-Loebs. We see these 4 people hanging out, and I like this little callback to the first issue. What the host says, "More fugu," and good thing they didn't have more fugu, because that would be the end of the story. So the host is telling them this story about this comic fan named Paul, who was also an archaeologist. He was on this dig. And they actually find this Egyptian tomb, and when they translate the hieroglyphics, there's certain ceremonies. And it's almost like we find out that Captain Marvel, saying Shazam turns him into a superhero. It's true. These Egyptians, I guess, had that power. There's some nice art here. I like how the flashbacks are this, like, muted, yellowish, almost like it's old parchment. And in the future, the present is just, full color. They don't really explain how it works or anything, but this guy Paul does, I guess, says Shazam. And it turns him into a superhero, but on paper. And the guy saved this 2-dimensional drawing of Paul all these decades. I mean, that's how he exists. And all these, the people at this party all put on robes, and they're saying, "Okay, let's do the invocation." And for some reason, the woman just strips down totally. And then you hear them say Shazam. So I don't know why they'd want to turn into two-dimensional characters on paper, but they're recreating the ceremony. Here's another nice Del Close autobiography story, adapted by John Ostrander, drawn by George Freeman. And this is when he was doing, he was in a theater company touring all the mining towns of like Virginia. So, I mean, playing for these, kind of country bumpkin people who weren't used to theater. But they're so bored. They're bored. There are these little towns. And it's just, we see all of Del Close and his acting troupe. They all seem to be a bunch of fun-loving youngsters, early 20-somethings. And kind of having a good time just driving around. We almost have this reference to that famous ghost story. Because look at this woman, this hitchhiker. She looks like an apparition. And they give her a ride. And they drop her off later. So the next show they're out there doing Julius Caesar. And, the character, I think this is Marcus. I can't remember which one. He says, I'm going to kill Caesar. And this country bumpkin in the audience just doesn't get the difference between theater and reality. And he says, kill Caesar, the hell you will. And he pulls out his gun and starts shooting at Del Close, who's playing the character. And then he takes his knife and throws it right at the guy and wounds him in the shoulder. So he drops the gun. The cops come, of course, clear Del. It was a clear case of self-defense. Man, I love me some George Freeman art. So they're driving along again, and once again, that same hitchhiker, the kind of ghostly, beautiful apparition appears. And she's like waving at the bus, and one of the troops says, she looks like she's trying to warn us of something. And then all of a sudden, the driver brakes, comes to a halt, and it's the townspeople, led by that wounded guy who Del threw the knife at. And he's all like, get yourselves off that bus. Get your faggot butts out here. And Del's still like laughing through the fear. He's like, hey, it's not me they want after all, it's Jerry. Because the theater manager's gay. So that's it. I have to leave you on a cliffhanger, guys. I'm sorry. But usually there's not two-parters in these Wastelands. But this one happened to have one. So until next time, probably be less than a week or so, or around a week, I'll show you Wasteland number 7 through 9, and we'll figure out what happens in that one. So thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. I love these Wastelands. I hope you find them. Hope you add them to your own academy, because they are definitely worthy of anyone's comic book collection. So until next time, I remain herculespetix.